Today on Moms Matter, we're going to talk about the grueling admissions process. And us moms in LA, yeah, we're type A, and we want all our kids to get into the best colleges. I have Sonali Bridges here, who has been doing this for over 20 years, to tell us how to navigate this really, really challenging time of getting our kids into middle school, high school, college, law school, and so on.
Thanks for having me, by the way.
Yes,
I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
I think the most important thing is that people learn to breathe, learn to take a deep inhale and exhale really well, because it's not as challenging as people think it is.
You know, I think in our community in LA, and you've worked here for, over a decade, so we're all kind of in competition with another. Okay, if my kid goes to USC, your kid's going to UCLA, and we're all pushing for these same schools. And what if our kid doesn't belong in any of these schools? I mean, what do we do then?
Well, my first thought is you're only in competition with yourself. And when I say you, I mean the student, not the parents. The parents are not in this ballgame. We've already been to college. This is not your journey. This is really your child's journey.
Yes.
And it's really understanding who your child is and what's important to them, what do they value, and what kind of good human being are they, and how is that going to be enhanced by the college that they choose. So when we're talking about brand names and stickers, that doesn't matter as much as what kind of human being are we going to be in this world. And especially in today's world, we really need some kind, good people.
Yes.
And we also have no idea what kind of careers and opportunities there are for students that are not really in a little black box that says, this is my major. We don't know what that is.
You're absolutely right.
So it's really finding your joy and passion and going that path.
You talk about kind, good people. I couldn't agree with you more. But here's my question for you. Do kind, good people get into the top universities?
Yes, if they present themselves authentically. I always talk to students about putting your soul on paper. Yes, GPAs, test scores, they matter, but they are two factors in the admissions process. Colleges care about leaders and people who care about their community and provide service and overextend themselves to be helpful in their own community. It doesn't really matter if they go on a trip to Africa. What are they doing in their local community? And colleges are caring more and more about that than they are about who has the perfect GPA and perfect test scores. Colleges are choosing to go test optional these days because students are more than their test score. And so if they're able to share their story authentically and organically and with some passion and purpose, they're most likely going to get into college than someone else.
And you're saying this from experience because you've sat on the other side on the admission teams where you have been reading all of these resumes. And
I have. I've read for various different colleges. I used to be a director of admission myself at a small liberal arts college. I've read for large public universities. I've read for small liberal arts colleges on both East Coast, West Coast. So I've seen the gamut. I've also been on the high school side where I've helped students along the path of trying to figure out where's the place that they're going to find their most joy. Some schools have an acceptance rate of 6%. Some schools have an acceptance rate of 84%. So when you're figuring out what college you should be going to, you really need to look at all of that. There's 2,600 colleges in the country and more across the globe. And more students are actually choosing to go outside of the country for college because it happens to be more affordable and they can have that intercultural experience as well. So there's lots of options.
There are lots of options. And, when these kids are super amped and high anxiety and you're talking, I'm going to take all the honors and AP's classes and I'm going to on, and I'm going to do an internship. You're saying now that that's not exactly what they want to be reading because everyone's kind of doing that. Is that?
Well, it's important that they take the properest, rigorous course load for themselves. So it doesn't matter if your best friend happens to be sitting next to you in a classroom and taking all honors and AP classes. If you can do well in a regular college prep class and get an A versus taking an AP or honors class and getting a C, you should probably take the college prep class. Every school has a different academic rigor, and whatever is the best rigor for that particular student is what I recommend. Because at the end of the day, how they master a subject, how well they understand it in its depth is what's more important. And what are they doing with it outside of the classroom? Do they have some community service attached to it? Are they passionate about STEM? Do they really like the arts? How are they being authentic to themselves by taking classes that they really love and enjoy? That's the most important
So you're
thing.
also saying don't go and do an internship just because it looks good on paper. Rather, delve into something that you're really passionate about.
Absolutely. And colleges also don't know about the resume padding. They don't want a student who's done basketball 1 year, then they're going to go join a club the next year. They want to see some consistency. If you're a scholar athlete, be a scholar athlete. If you're an artist, have that show in your background. Because what's challenging is when colleges are looking at your application and there's all these different things that you talk about and there's no consistency. That tells me a student doesn't really know who they are. They're probably undecided. Why are they going into business? Why are they going into biological sciences or nursing? It doesn't make any sense. But if they have a pattern and show that they really care about this particular area, they have experiences, they can show anecdotes about what has happened to them, what they really value. Colleges appreciate that. They really care about an authentic student.
Incredible. And what are your thoughts of taking a gap year?
I think it's great, depending on the student. Again, it's always, my answer is always going to be it depends, because it's based on an individual student. If a student is young in their emotional and social maturity, perhaps they need that year. They still have to apply to college during their senior year,
right?
And take that time to be able to, explore things. But it's not, I don't recommend a gap year where students are just, let me figure it out. No, I need you to have a plan. And as parents, we should encourage them to have a plan. What are you going to do for 3 months or 6 months? I have a student right now who's like off building fishing boats, in Fiji, and doing all these different kinds of things because that's what he's interested in. Wow. So it's important for them to be able to have something planned, but something that's meaningful and thoughtful that will give them that preparation and that springboard to be successful in college, really know themselves.
Right. And when does that start? When do you really start to plan? Some people are in the womb and the parents are already starting, but realistically, what year are you thinking, okay, I got to start thinking about college and my options and my course load?
Well, it should start in the 10th grade when you're starting to really panic or worry about college. But really, it starts at the womb. As a mom, how your child is in utero. If they're active, if they're quiet, if when they come out, are they more interested in playing with balls? Are they more interested in breaking things apart and pulling it together? Pay attention to all of those things. You never know if the art that they're drawing on your wall is going to create a future Picasso or not. You have no idea what that is. And so just to kind of listen to your child, I think a child always tells you who they are. My daughter, I have 2 girls myself. You have 4, but I have 2 myself. And one is definitely an athlete. One wants to be an athlete, but is really a theater, art, music kid. And so it's just flourishing in their passion and supporting that, letting them kind of lead the way and guide them. Having thoughtful conversations with them, those are all things that are going to matter. And I also believe in family tradition as well, because those are the things that are going to keep your kid coming back home after college. Those are really important factors. But when they're in the 9th and 10th grade, as long as they are taking a progressive course load that moves them forward, following the course pattern of algebra, geometry, algebra 2, trig, that kind of course pattern colleges look at. Honors and AP classes are always welcome. But if your child is one to stress out because they're in an AP test and they can't do well on that test, why add that stress and pressure to them? Perhaps an honors class might be better because they're not learning towards a test, they're learning for deeper understanding and meaning. So support that. Your child usually knows, and they're the first to tell you, hey mom, I don't want to take this history class, or I don't want to take this particular science class. I'd rather take sustainability because they just added it. Great. Let's see what that explores and takes on, and you don't know how best to support your child. But I think a lot of listening needs to happen. Students have great desires to please their parents, but also compete with others. I've had students tell me, I can't apply to this particular college because it's not going to look good with my family or within my culture. That's hard. That's a really very difficult thing because that is real for them. But how else can they navigate that conversation? Some students would actually prefer the transfer route so they can get into their top university. And to me, it doesn't really matter which way you go, as long as in the end you've graduated from the place that you are happy at.
Right.
And having realistic college options and lists as well. There's no reason to apply to 25 to 30 schools. None. Absolutely none.
Oh, God.
There's none. Parents, it's like playing the lottery, they tell me all the time. We're trying to roll the dice, see where it lands. Well, that's not helpful in any way, shape, or form. What matters is that your child is applying to a school that they can see themselves at and that they're really happy at. And even if that school happens to be their likely choice, not their safety. We don't use that word anymore because there's no school that is 100% shoo-in for a student anymore in this country. You have to work for it. And that means being vulnerable and talking about yourself in ways that kind of make you uncomfortable. But when you lean into that uncomfortable space is where you grow the most. And so if you're able to apply to schools that make you happy and you're going to be joyful at them, then wherever you end up, whether that be a far reach school like an Ivy League or a small liberal arts college that is a likely school for you, that student is going to be happy. And where they're happy, they're going to thrive.
Right. And that's all we want. At the end of the day, we're doing all of this so that we can have happy kids.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Sonali. That was a wealth of knowledge, and I think so helpful to moms out there.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming on the show with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope you ladies were listening. If we want happy children, we need to listen rather than push them into places where they won't feel comfortable. So Sonali Bridges will leave all her information below. You can contact her if you have more questions and if you want to set up a time to see her to help you out with the process. And it was right here at Focus TV Network. We'll see you next time.